Michael McQuade, welcome back for part 5 of the Michael McQuade Masterclass. How you doing?
Not too bad, Sam. Thank you, and thanks for having me again, and good to be back.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. So we'll get straight into it. We're going to talk about making your first hire. So what was the moment you realised that you needed to make your first hire?
Um, well, I guess because I left a corporate job and set up my own business and started off as a sole trader. So I guess I knew I would always be hiring people or needing to hire people. And so for me, it wasn't a question of would I hire somebody, would I not hire somebody. It was just a question of when. So, and I guess for me, I already was entrepreneurial enough and I'd done stuff when I was kind of younger to kind of know that well a hire comes with winning work. So until I start winning work, enough work or more work than I can do or that I want to do, then that's kind of the trigger point for me to make my first hire. So I guess I was conscious of that I would be doing it, and I was mindful of when that would be, and yeah, so I guess it just naturally came to the point where I started to win more work more regularly, and then I knew, okay, now is the right time to start to think about taking somebody on, because prior to that, it would have been not knowing where the next piece of work is coming from, and I was kind of able to handle that myself. Because although I left a corporate job, I left a big, I guess, a big firm in the West End, left with no clients because the sort of clients we would be working for wouldn't really be employing small practices or sole traders. They want that kind of big West End name to service their advisory needs. So I kind of had to start from zero. So I had a while to build up before I started to build up that reputation for doing the sort of work I was able to do as a small business, and then it was just naturally keeping an eye on when the right time was for that to happen.
Yeah. So talking of the right time and actually making that jump, were you nervous about the cost or responsibility of hiring someone?
Well, I guess there's always that slight apprehension when you go to do that because you're taking on somebody that you're committing to pay, and then I guess there's legal responsibilities around that employment then as well. Um, I don't think I was ever particularly scared by it because I guess being entrepreneurial, you're always looking on the positive side of things generally, and that even though I don't know where the work is for that person in 4 months' time, I know that that work will come in because I will make it come in and I will do what I need to do to make it come in. So, no, I wouldn't say I was ever particularly worried about doing it. No, it was just about, I guess, when the right time to do it would be. And that would be something, I guess, for people to be mindful of as well, is that quite often there never usually really is a right time to hire somebody. What I mean by that is that you'll never get to a point where you have the right amount of work where you know I can hire somebody now. You're kind of hiring them before you need them. In some ways, and hiring the best time to be hiring is hiring before you have full capacity for that person because usually if you get to that point, it means you're doing too much yourself already, and that might mean then that you're, I guess, impacting your reputation or the delivery or the quality of your work already before you've got somebody else on board to help, if you like, spread that a bit further.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You've got to be looking into the future and um, make sure that you've got the skills with the person before you actually need them, because by the time you need them and then taking time to train them, it's too late then. I think it's too much of a struggle to make sure that you train them properly if you're far too busy to do that.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's a balance, and I think this is what people don't maybe realize as well, or don't accept enough, is that it's better to have somebody on board at say 60% utilization to begin with, as long as they're covering their costs and making the business a profit. As long as that's covered off, they don't have to be busy to 100%. Nobody is at 100% capacity anyway. That doesn't work. That doesn't happen. Um, so I guess it's getting enough work in that'll keep them busy and keep them occupied, and won't have them feeling like that they're sitting at a seat where there isn't enough to be done. So they have enough to do, but they aren't being particularly stretched just yet. And I guess that's where the flex comes in then, and that's where you as the business owner will then be going out there to slowly bring in more work that then, if you like, loads them up a little bit more, up to a point, not too much, but loads them up and fills up the remainder of their capacity. And then, then you're ready to start hiring again at that point.
Mm. Yeah. So you touched on it previously about um, taking somebody on and then you're out there getting the work. Did you find that having another mouth to feed, so to speak, it pushed you further and harder to try and grow the business?
Well, I guess it does, yeah, because it naturally makes you more conscious that if work doesn't come in, you will have to pay that person before you pay yourself. So you are acutely aware that work needs to be coming through the door regularly. Whether or not that's going to lead to you employing more people, or five more people, or 10 more people, or no more people. But the point is that when you have that first person, I guess you have a legal and I guess a moral responsibility as well to make sure that that person is looked after well and is paid, of course. So, and if there isn't enough money in the bank in a particular month, well, you're second to be paid after them. So yes, I guess it brings into focus for you. I didn't need that push, but I guess because I was always naturally, I guess, orientated around numbers and making sure that there was enough work coming in, and I guess that it was profitable work as well. But it is a consideration, yes.
Yeah. So when you're looking to take on a member of staff, what's the process for that? And how and what qualities do you look for in regard to their skills and personality?
Well, when I had the surveying practice, when we were growing that and we were taking on surveyors in that business, we used to operate I guess an interview process and an employment process that was quite like what a big firm would do and quite like what I went through. So when I was getting my sort of early graduate jobs in central London, doing interviews with people like Jones Lang LaSalle, Cluttons, those kind of people, large companies. You often went through a multi-stage process of interviews, and you met various people in the company. You had to go through various different exercises, um, various different intensities of interview as well. So I adopted that approach in growing our business, in growing the surveying practice, because there was no reason why a small business shouldn't have the same emphasis and shouldn't put the same time and effort into employing people. Because actually employing somebody, it is a risky move in itself, because and a lot of people don't really view it this way and don't give it enough attention. Because really, when you employ somebody, um, everybody shows the best version of themselves in an interview. And if you're only doing one interview with them and it's a sit down chat in a coffee shop, well, that's not really going to get to the bottom of what are they really like as an individual, what are they really like as I guess a person in terms of their work and their integrity and all of those kind of things and their approach to work. So for me, I think you have to get to know somebody over a little bit of time. So that's through various different methods. Our early sort of process used to be, let's say, a questionnaire that they would fill in and send back with their CV. Then we would have an interview process where they would do a presentation as well and produce some work as part of that interview submission for the second interview. And then the third interview would be then the shortlisted people, where we would then take those through then into that kind of final stage, more in-depth interview to kind of get to know them that bit better technically as well. Uh, because really what happens is when you take somebody on, that's only the first step in a multi-step approach to will that person still be with you in 1 year's time. Um, as far as I'm concerned, the interview process goes on for the first 6 months after you employ that person, because it's only when they start to settle into their role, it's only when they start to settle into your business, and it's only when they start to become comfortable in their surroundings and comfortable around you that you really then start to see what they're like as a person and how they handle pressure, how they handle clients, how they handle difficult clients. And it's only then that you can start to make your real, I guess, view as to whether that person is going to be somebody that's the right fit for you culturally in the longer term.
Yeah, that's a good point about 6 months. And I think people are sometimes too quick to make a judgment on somebody, and you putting people through that rigorous interview process. And three interviews sounds like a a great amount, and especially with the presentation they have to give. I think that's brilliant. So if you're interviewing and part of the interview process is to give an interview, to give the presentation, what are you looking for as the interviewer?
Well, I guess what I'm looking for first of, I mean, there's a number of things. So when we would have set up this presentation as one element of one part of the interview, what we were looking for there is we were looking for how well could somebody put together a document, how well could somebody present a document. That before they got up and started talking about it, they would have to submit that document. So we were looking for their approach to how much detail they would go into producing the document that they were then going to present verbally, uh, how they would lay that out. Just fairly standard stuff, but it all feeds into and starts to give you insights into what way that person is and how that person would be producing documents and producing advice and presenting advice when they would be coming to work for you, because this is the point of it, and particularly in a professional services firm, you're employing somebody who you're going to be letting loose. Your idea is that this person is able to be working with clients directly on their own without you looking over their shoulder every day. You're there to guide and lead them, and you're there to help them fill any gaps, and you're there to help them troubleshoot particularly challenging situations. But the main aim of what you're trying to do is to get that person to be, if you like, fully stand alone as a professional in your team as quickly as possible. So all this early stage stuff then starts to give you insights into how they conduct themselves, which will then lead forward into what you can likely expect then on the job.
Hmm. So moving on, you've interviewed them, you've taken them on 6 months down the line,
Yep.
when your unofficial interview process ends.
Yeah.
Um, what happens then? Do you have an appraisal with them? Um, or do you just let it slide and don't tell them any more about it?
No, again, we always, I guess, when we got to a size, so when it was just me as a sole trader, when I set up the business first of all, and we were employing people, I guess the first employee, there wasn't that big interview process for that first employee because that was kind of just getting off the ground. As we started to employ more people, then we started to introduce these things. So that was kind of the three-stage interview. Then as we became, uh, I guess, as and when I knew that the company was now ready to grow further and we were taking on, I guess, more people, that's when we introduced this kind of new level of interview process. Um, and sorry, I lost track there, and I've gone off topic.
Yeah. It was about the sort of 6 months
Oh yes.
where it ends, and is there a point at that 6 months where you do an appraisal, or you say well done, or these are the points you need to improve?
Yes, so what we did was, which is why I started with that previous point, is we continued on that sort of big firm approach then post getting employed and being successful and winning the job, to having regular appraisals, and that we would run those appraisals very formally as well. And we had an external HR person as well who then started to administer those appraisals for us, because you also want to be able to have, I guess as we grew, we got to a point where I felt that it probably wasn't the right thing for me just to be sitting down with staff members and going through the appraisal process. It would be useful for them to have somebody else that they would present their answers to. And even though I'm getting those answers eventually via this third party person, but it introduces a gap between, the employer and the staff members. So the staff members can legitimately more easily raise things with this third party person who they don't have a professional or personal relationship with, in the knowledge that they aren't giving it directly to me, so they can kind of feed stuff back to that, and I get a more honest then appraisal of what they think or how they feel about themselves, that kind of stuff. So we went to that kind of extent. So yes, we had the appraisals, and then they would be 6 monthly and 1 yearly as a minimum.
Hmm. I think that's really good what you say about getting an independent party to interview them to get a more honest answer, and that sounds like a really big win, a good positive in the business, if we were to flip it, what were the biggest mistakes or lessons learned from your hiring experiences?
Well, I suppose in the early stages when it was when you started making your first hire, although I went through what I get kind of felt was a fairly rigorous interview, um, it's and I guess most people didn't do any more than that at the time. Um, but I guess I quickly realized then that you know what, you need to put in a bit more, maybe even more effort than I thought you needed to at the interview stage. Even though I was doing more than I saw other people doing, that still necessarily wasn't enough to kind of, I guess, highlight things more up front that you found out later on that you could have identified more easily up front or more quickly up front, to help you decide. Uh, I guess it's there was no real mistakes as such. It was just, I guess, realizing that there's always an evolution of your process that's required, and each time your business grows, that evolution of all your processes and all the ways you operate as a business, including how you hire people, that also has to grow and change and expand in accordance with what you now decide that your business needs and wants, and how your business now needs to act and be seen to act. You have to then look back at everything else that you're doing in terms of how you get people sitting at those desks and start to ask yourself, do I need to be changing any of those processes? So I think it was, yeah, no real mistakes as such, but more just realization as you go along. And I think for people, mistakes people could make is that they may not look backwards at the stuff that they're doing early on in the process of employing somebody, and they might just kind of continue that same process over and over again. But really, it needs to be reviewed a lot quicker as you're growing than probably most companies do.
Yeah, it's all about that adaptability, being able to change, come up with fresh ideas, and evaluate what has happened in the past. And it might not have gone wrong, like you said, but just learn as you go. I think that's so important for any business owner, having the adaptability and being able to learn as you go.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to somebody who feels stuck doing everything themselves, but they're really reluctant or hesitant to hire someone?
Well, I think it depends on what, I guess one thing to say there would depend on what that person would see, where they would see themselves in terms of a business. Do they intend to have a business which, do they envisage themselves having a business where it has a number of people in there, whatever number that is? It could be two, it could be 22, it could be 52. It doesn't really matter. But do they envisage themselves having a business with a number of people in there, or do they envisage themselves having a job, but as in as a sole trader, where they control their own time, what they do, but they would like to be less busy? Because I guess both of those things require a very different approach. If it's just you working as a sole trader and you just like the flexibility of being your own boss, and you don't see yourself ever having a larger company, then perhaps then it's outsourcing some of your tasks to freelancers to kind of get you doing less than you're doing at the moment. If you see yourself as somebody who has a company and you see yourself leading a business one day, again, that doesn't have to be big. It could be only a handful of people. But then you need to start making that hire quite soon, before you probably think you're ready for it, and before you have all of the work lined up, because this is part of the risk of being in business, and particularly more so when you're starting out. First of all, there are a few kind of big jumps that you make, and that big jump, firstly, is from the context of you seeing yourself owning a business, is employing that first member of staff, and you'll generally have to do that before you probably feel the time is right. But that's your investment. That's your investment. That's your risk. You're taking a risk, but you're taking a calculated risk. And you're doing that on the basis that to be able to grow further, you need to get that person on board as soon as possible.
Yeah, great point about the calculated risk. It's not a cost to the business, is it? It's an investment into the business. I think that's
Correct.
quite an important distinction to make.
It is, yeah. And I mean, the risks there's risks with everything you do, and I guess you're probably not best suited to be an entrepreneur or a business owner or a property developer, whatever it is, if you aren't happy, comfortable with risk. There are varying degrees of risk. Some people are happy with having much more risk and carrying much more risk than others are. But I guess being a business owner is a risky business, because I guess you're putting your hands I guess, in the economy and the government and all those kind of things that are going to dictate whether your business is successful or not. And you have to spend money to make your business successful. One of those ways of spending money, or one of the things you have to spend on, is staff and employees. So I guess you're doing that, but it's an investment in your company. And as long as you truly believe that you have the ability to go out there, win clients, build a good reputation, build a good brand, and that that work will come in. You won't see right now where it's coming from. Um, but as long as everything else suggests that the sector you're in, the economy that you're in at the moment, is a good one, the only thing that is stopping you from winning work is the fact that you haven't met those clients yet, then you should be going ahead and making your hire, because now it's a calculated risk. You are of the belief that if you get in front of somebody, you'll win a piece of work. Your task now is, how do I get in front of that person? So it's not about whether the work is there, it's about how do I get access to it.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic point. And just to wrap up, the final question: if you could give one tip on making your first hire, what would it be?
Well, I think you're hiring somebody on the basis of, don't just focus on technical stuff that you need them to do. Hire as well very strongly based on the characteristics of that person, because quite often somebody may not be fully fit to do the job that you want them to do just right now, but they have the characteristics and the appetite to learn, and that's usually sometimes can be more valuable than somebody who has the technical knowledge but doesn't have the right, I guess, cultural fit in your organization, or doesn't have the right values, or doesn't conduct themselves quite in the right way. So I would say, don't only focus on the technical, look really strongly as well at the person's characteristics and values, and hire as much on that. And in fact, the technical stuff can be lacking because the right person will learn that pretty quickly.
I think that's an absolutely great top number one tip. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, find out more about what you do, Michael, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Michael McQuade, MRICS. I am a surveyor by background, former surveyor. And they can have a look at my website. I've got a website which is michaelmcquaid.co.uk, and that's where I talk about the mentoring work that I do, and other stuff on there. So yeah, those are two ways to find me.
Fantastic stuff. Hopefully you'll get lots of people reaching out to you, and thanks a lot for your time.
No problem, Sam. Thank you. Thanks for the time. Bye.
Cheers.